Hey guys, what's up? It's a Culture Detective here investigating your favorite movies, and today I am back with another movie review where I review another film from this year that I saw in Cannes Film Festival a couple weeks ago. And today I'll be talking about Highest to Lowest. This is a new film, a new joint, you might say, from legendary American filmmaker Spike Lee. Now, yeah, highest to lowest. Wow. I remember like a year ago or so, I found out that Spike Lee is making a an American remake of Kurosawa's High and Low, which, by the way, Kurosawa is literally one of my favorite filmmakers of all times, and High and Low is a bona fide masterpiece. So obviously, I was like, "Yep, this one's gonna suck." And so I went into the film already expecting it to be kind of bad, and it pretty much lived up to my expectations. It was kind of bad. But for a split second, I was convinced that maybe Highest to Lowest would be a good film because it had such a damn good teaser trailer. The teaser trailer is very stylish. It shows the most colorful, the most visually interesting parts of the film, and most important of all, when I watched the teaser trailer, it doesn't look like High and Low at all. High and Low is a film that takes place in a mountaintop villa, in a mansion, in a really nice house for the first hour, and in the second hour, it mostly takes place in a police station. And Highest to Lowest doesn't look like that at all. It just looks like a tried and true sort of cut and dry New York City crime thriller. So obviously, I got a little bit excited going to the film. And then I was disappointed again. So there's that. Now, if you guys didn't know this, I actually made it to the premiere, to the world premiere of this film. And again, I could spend minutes talking about how I managed to make it into the premiere, but long story short, I lined up. I was in tuxedo, I was dressed up really nice, and I got into the film, and then the people in Cannes Film Festival, the staff, they kicked me out for not having elegant shoes. And then so I ran around asking strangers to borrow their shoes and to promise them that 2 hours later I'm gonna get back to them. And I actually pulled that off, which is absolutely fucking mind blowing. But is it worth it? Not really sure. Now, of course, when I talk about Spike Lee remaking Asian films, the first film people think of is Old Boy 2013, where he remakes the Korean film, the classic Korean film Old Boy from 2003. And as we all know, Old Boy 2013 is a train wreck. That film is an absolute train wreck that completely misses the point of the original film, doesn't have the same energy, doesn't have the same tone, doesn't have the same performances as the original. It's just so freaking bad. I'm sorry. But it appears that Highest to Lowest is different. Mainly because the title is different. So now you're gonna think, maybe this film is gonna be different from Old Boy 2013. Well, kinda. So let me talk about the most glaring element of the film, the elephant of the room, and that is Ice Spice. So Ice Spice is in this movie, and I was expecting her to be involved a lot more, and I was quite disappointed to find out that she only appears for about 40 seconds in this film. But in those 40 seconds, her acting was pretty good. She just plays like a normal person, and she's like fine, actually. Now, let's talk about how this film is actually legit highest to lowest, except it's switched around, lowest to highest, because the first hour of this film is terrible. It's insufferable. It was, I can't believe I'm fucking watching this shit at the Grand Theatre Lumiere. Like something of this quality, I was like baffled by how bad it is. And then the second hour was like, you know what? This is actually pretty good. It actually ended on a pretty high note. So it went from low to high. And I don't think that's intentional at all. So in the first hour of the film, and I think sometimes in the second hour as well, it's almost like the DP, the editor, and the composer worked for three completely different films. The DP thinks this is a modern mid-budget drama, the editor thinks it's a fast-paced comedy, and the composer thinks it's some epic Hollywood fantasy film. Why is the music so terrible? Usually Spike Lee films has great music, especially with Highest to Lowest, the main character, played by Denzel Washington, is this music mogul who wants to elevate and promote black artists, black singers, songwriters. How is this film not doing anything for black music? There are a couple of songs in this film where it's more jazzy and soul, which is great, but the rest of the film is mainly comprised of terrible, like, copyright free, royalty free, cheap music that just feels like they came out of a generic fantasy film. There are flutes and harps in it for some reason. The music is so bad, it's honestly distracting. And the editing is also incredibly choppy. The funny thing is that the first half feels different from the second half because they probably used two different editors. Now, I haven't talked about the plot yet. So High and Low is a film about a shoe mogul. It's about a very rich guy who lives on top of the mountain, and his chauffeur's son was kidnapped because the kidnapper wants money in order to prove a point of how the rich is fucking over the poor. And the film is ultimately about the class division. It's about the rich and the poor, the high and the low. Literally, high living on the mountain and low living in the slums of Tokyo. And Highest to Lowest is about something similar. It's about a music mogul played by Denzel Washington, and his chauffeur's son is kidnapped. But very quickly, the film turns into something else, which now we will discuss. About how this film, Highest to Lowest, is even more of a reinterpretation than Oldboy, in that it is tailor-made to more American sensibilities. Now, again, I feel like this film is supposed to be a celebration of black culture and black music, but somehow this film does more for Puerto Rican music than black music. Also, I feel like this film is made for a future where Kamala Harris was president because of the Kamala Harris for President poster in the back of the room, which makes this film feel really funny because now Kamala Harris is not the president, and we're in a darker, funkier, weirder future that no matter how dark this film gets, it's nowhere near going to be as dark as reality. Now, I also forgot to mention that the props in this film, there's an A24 door where it's a door and the number of the door says A24, which I thought was really silly. It's honestly hilarious. There's this like the logo of the music company that Denzel Washington was running literally swipes past the screen, and it's so funny because the editing is so boring and safe for the most part. Why this scene transition? It just sort of came out of nowhere, and it just feels forced. A$AP Rocky is not bad, but I think he plays a very stereotypical hot-headed rapper slash gangster type character, and his character is unironically named Young Felon. Oh my god, the kidnapper, the felon, is called a felon? What? Okay, now let's not be so negative, because the second half of the film is where all the good stuff happens. Of course, the Puerto Rican parade sequence and the chase are fantastic. The rap battle, there's a rap battle between Denzel Washington and A$AP Rocky, and it's fucking majestic. I loved it. And there's also a music video at the end. But honestly, man, like, A$AP Rocky's real life music videos are somehow better and more well directed than the music video that Spike Lee directed for A$AP Rocky. Finally, let me bring back the comparisons between Highest to Lowest and High and Low. Now, Act 1 of High and Low is about the rich. It's about Mifune Toshiro's character, Toshiro Mifune. Him being a really rich guy and receiving these phone calls from the kidnapper. And Act 1 of Highest to Lowest follows a pretty similar structure, except what I like more about Highest to Lowest actually is that Highest to Lowest actually explores the relationships between Denzel Washington and his kid and his chauffeur with his kid. Now, Act 2 is completely neglected. High and Low's Act 2 is a police procedural, and Act 2 of Highest to Lowest is completely gone. There's no police procedural. Denzel Washington's character, David King, he just does it on his own. He's like, I don't trust the police. I'll finish this matter on my own. And it becomes a solo revenge quest. And I actually kind of like this choice. I think if this film is made in America, there is a greater distrust towards the police force. So it makes sense that the police procedural element is completely taken out. Act 3 is also kind of completely gone, which I think is a huge bummer because in High and Low, Act 3 is the thesis statement of the film. It's about the high and the low, the rich and the poor. But Act 3 of Highest to Lowest kind of misses the point. There is no class consciousness in this film. It misses a huge chunk of why High and Low exists in the first place. And finally, I think Denzel Washington's character, David King, I think he's like nowhere near as compelling as the original main character of High and Low. The original main character of High and Low is tough, he's stern, but he has his moral guidelines. In Highest to Lowest, Denzel's character is almost morally ambiguous, which kind of misses the point again, because the point is no matter how kind-hearted and good-hearted you are, if you're rich, you're bound to screw over the poor. And that is an inevitable tragedy of society. So yeah, Highest to Lowest, it's still worth checking out. It really sucks that it's going to be on theaters for like a week before it's going to end up in Apple TV. But I still recommend everyone to check this film out. I'm giving Highest to Lowest a 5 out of 10. So have you watched Highest to Lowest? Comments below, let me know. Subscribe if you want more. And thanks for watching.